Okay, greetings, game changers. This is Classic Games Redefined. My name's Rich, and I will ghost, snoop around on different video game forums, even though I don't participate, to find articles and things to discuss. I'm going to post a link to this article below in the description so you can go check it there. And it's this article, and I want to go and discuss something, and you probably, if you've been following my channel, you know where I stand on this and where I'm going to take it. And I know, and I'm going to make a request here. If you've gotten this far in this video, what I'm about to say here, very likely you'll thumb down and say I'm a lunatic and everything else and don't get it. I ask you to bear with me. I may be wrong here. I'm just some guy on the internet. What I would request of you, please, don't just do a thumb down to what I'm about to say, but start a discussion below in the comments. I want to explain where I'm coming from here regarding this here. And there's guys who are slamming Jonathan Blow, saying he can't tell stories and he's clueless and everything else. And stories are absolutely great in video games. I mean, video games are absolutely great for telling story and everything else. Post a link, read this article here. Because what I'm about to say is that I generally agree with Jonathan Blow on this. And I'm going to explain why. The situation you're looking at here is this. He said video games are terrible for telling stories. And then people, when I see this, and it might be the quote gamer, as opposed to somebody who's a player or plays games, is this whole cultural mindset of the need to have a story in a game. The problem you have with storytelling, telling a story, and note where I'm putting emphasis on telling, is that the narrator or the story creator is driving a narrative, driving the flow in order to elicit a response or an experience around the campfire. What you have is an experience that somebody lived that's edited by the person telling the storyteller and cuts certain things out. That functioning there to tell a story ends up resulting in a lack of control by a player. This storytelling doesn't mean that if you avoid it, you can't have an engaging experience. You can't give somebody a memorable experience, like the holodeck, for example. If you were in a holodeck on the Star Trek Next Generation, I mentioned this before, the simulating, the computer there in the holodeck is creating an experience for you, you interact with, and you create it. It's not telling you a story. What you watch on Star Trek Next Generation is a told story. It's like reality TV, and it's an edited version of the experience built up with focused camera work, drama, music, and everything else. And the narrator does it. It's a passive experience that you watch and you get the experience with. Games, on the other hand, the gameplay experience and everything else, the adventure, even the computer adventure or something else, is typically driven by player experience, and engagement is through participation, not doing it. So that's what you're looking at here. And people go, oh, Jonathan Blow doesn't know squat and everything else. The reality is Miyamoto said the same thing too. Well, who's Miyamoto anyway? He just does Zelda, Mario, and everything else. He says he's not telling a story, he's creating an experience. So the approach that they do for the engagement is there's a big wall up, and that's what Jonathan Blow said. Go read the article. That you all of a sudden have this cutscene, a video, full motion video cutscene, and what you do there is you watch it, and then you do some actions to go to the next cutscene. It's divided up. It's not an interactive experience. So again, if you feel like if you were dropped in a holodeck experience or doing live action role playing, somebody's telling a story. If you feel that is a medium and it's the same thing as what you get out of a movie and storytelling, then I understand you say Jonathan Blow is wrong here. But my take on that is following. He's generally correct here. The medium sucks. It's terrible for telling a story, not for creating an engaging experience. Not for going in the world and you have these things. Then what you do is you have this story you created, and then when you tell others the war stories that you have, you do it. You then are telling a story when you do it that way. Problem is that a focus on wanting to tell a story, and note my emphasis, the end result, what it leads to, is an undermining of playability. And it's a big debate here. It's a big debate. The problem I have here with this, too, is that the people in the Asked Jonathan Blow was that there's this story on the brain thing of people wanting to treat it as consumable entertainment and believing they have it and you must have it. So you're working with a very hard medium that's supposed to be interactivity and everything else, but at the same time having it that way, and you get stuff like The Order, which is totally, with a little bit of interaction and totally driving it that way and supposed to be engaging. The fact of the matter is, it ends up not necessarily working well, and you have other things that way. Mind you, doesn't mean that interactivity can be used here as a means of communicating and stuff like this, but interactivity puts the control in the hands of the player, and your dev costs, to be honest here, are going to shoot through the roof. You have very expensive games. If you have to account for every single reaction and what the players do, and by giving them freedom, you have to code every single thing there, not a procedurally generated world, you're going to have problems. If you feel like there has to be a narrative put on top and everything else told, it's an issue. It's like there's a big wall divide between the things here. The AAA stuff, which I have an issue with, we'll do all this production value for the videos and everything else and tell a great story, and then kind of like it's an intermission between that, you go off doing something else. We have a story scene, and then we have the action. We do a mini game where we're doing things, going across, and we'll go do something else. Does it mean that a world can't have a flow to it? Yes, it can. It can do that, and probably the more linear the flow of the game to it is there. But honestly, when you start doing this here and wanting to tell a story, you have issues with the player losing control. So anyhow, I would generally agree with Jonathan Blow here on this. Please listen to me. And I understand that I might get a lot of people disliking it. Please, my request here is civilly in the comments below, discuss why you disagree here, and please let me know what your thoughts here. I'm requesting you please do that. So anyhow, so that's about it. I do want to thank you for listening here, watching as in this page here, which I'm just doing. I do want to thank you for watching. May your die always roll 5, and remember, don't hate the player, change the game.